from birth, there is perception. As a baby, in other words, a baby perceives, and then slowly over time, that perception is slowly clouded by personal perspective. You know, as the child grows, personal perspective slowly clouds perception. As you know, when the child begins to speak, I like this, I like that, I find that funny, I don't find that funny. You know what I'm saying? That's all a matter of personal perspective. So, in other words, personal perspective is I. The I is born. At some point in childhood, I is born. I like this, I like that, I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? And personal perspective is the byproduct of thought. You know what I'm saying? The personal perspective is the way you perceive according to what you think of things. In other words, we think we think as I, and we also speak as I. I'm sure you've noticed this. When you refer to yourself as I. So we speak as I this, I that, but we think as I as well. And I'm sure you've noticed this, but your personal perspective is always liable to change. The way you think about things now may be different to the way you think about things, you know, in 5 years' time, in 2 years' time, in a week's time. You know what I'm saying? It can change. Personal perspective can change daily even. But perception itself, that doesn't change. Perception is just perception. Perception untainted by personal perspective. Perception itself is just perception. And perception is neither mine or yours. Perception is just perception. It only becomes mine or yours when I speak through my personal perspective. You know what I'm saying? And then it's not perception, it's just personal perspective. But, you know, what fascinates me is this, is do we ever simply just perceive as we go about our daily lives? Do we ever just perceive the happenings of our life? Or is our perception always clouded by our personal perspective? You know, and the thing is this, you can change your personal perspective. You know, you can change the way you think about things, create I'm gonna think about things differently now, you know, and things in life, the happenings of life can change the way you think about things. Certainly for me, that, you know, the birth of my son changed a lot of ways in which I think, and that's natural, you know. And changing your perspective is also, it can be healthy, but my point is it's always just a personal perspective. Plain and simple. You can change it. It may well change, but to see the fact that it's simply always, it's just a personal perspective. To me, that's so important, you know, and it's not all bad. You know what I'm saying? What makes me laugh might not necessarily make you laugh, because humour, what you find funny, in other words, I might not find funny, but because humour itself is a matter of personal perspective, and that's completely natural. It's what turns you on, what gives you the horn. Bong. It might not turn me on, because it's, again, personal perspective in that sense, is natural. Your morals, your morals might be different to mine, and the way, and again, that's natural. But personal preferences are, preferences are a realistic reality of life. What I've just had for my lunch, you might necessarily not want to have for your lunch. What I eat for my dinner might not be what you want to eat for your dinner, and that's fine. We don't all have the same things, because personal preference, according to our personal perspective, you know what I'm saying? Personal perspective, personal preference, whatever you want to call it, is a reality of life, and that there's no way of ending personal perspective. How would you end your personal perspective? Oh, excuse me, that's that egg I've just eaten for my lunch. How would you end your personal perspective? And how would you know if you've ended your personal perspective? Because you'd only know that you've ended it when you think to yourself, "Oh, I've done it. I've ended my personal perspective." And that's still a personal perspective. Because as soon as you think, because personal perspective is born of thought, as soon as you think I've done it, I haven't got all that means is now you have a personal perspective as being someone who doesn't have a personal perspective. Or in other words, now you think of yourself as being someone who doesn't have a personal perspective. I don't know whether you see that. I don't know whether that makes sense or not. But so what's it all about then, man? To me, I'm suggesting this. The utmost importance is to be aware of your personal perspective as it operates. Just to be aware of the whole movement of your personal perspective. Which is I like this, I like that. Be aware of it as it arises, as you go about your daily life. Whatever you perceive, are you perceiving everything according to your personal perspective? And if you're really aware, if you're aware of your personal perspective as it arises, therefore you see the relevance of it. And of course at times personal perspective is relevant. I'm not, as I just said, all the personal preferences of life are realistic. But if there's a guy walking, if I'm walking down the street and there's a guy walking towards me holding a big knife and he looks extremely angry, obviously my personal perspective is necessary in that sense, because my perspective is that he may well attack me with that knife. If I had no personal perspective, which is thought, which is knowledge, I wouldn't have the ability to think about that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so and also, look, by the way, in no way am I suggesting you are different from your personal perspective, because it's very easy to hear all this. And a lot of all this spiritual business have fallen into this trap as well. Anyone who's into spirituality, or they claim to be awareness. I am awareness because I'm aware of my thoughts. So I am the awareness. but that's still a thought. So I'm not suggesting that you are your personal perspective. You can't be free of it. It's ingrained into you from childhood. You're not separate from this. You are your personal perspective. But anyway, listen, I made a video called That's Not Right. If you want to watch that's what I went into all that in that video. So look, my point is this. Are you aware of I? From the moment you wake up in the morning, throughout the course of your day, whatever you're doing, are you aware of the whole operation of I? Your personal perspective, in other words. I like this, I like that. Oh, I don't like what he's doing. I don't agree with this. That's not right. I don't think so. I think this, I think that. Are you aware of I? If you are, you'll see the relevance of it. If you're aware, that awareness in itself is perception. You might see this, you might not. All the best. Take care.